Hello and welcome back to the Morning Skate podcast. Sorry, we're a couple minutes late. It was like both of us not being ready, but I'm going to blame myself. Matt, how is it going on this lovely Tuesday evening? Actually Monday evening. Holy crap! For the Tuesday slate, how is your whatever the holiday is day? If you're in Canada, it's one holiday. If you're in America, it's whatever you want to call it. What's going on with you?
Yes, I mean it's a second Thanksgiving for me because I'm just very thankful for afternoon hockey during the workday. Truly nothing better, and something that really only happens a couple times a year: President's Day, Canadian Thanksgiving. I think that's pretty much it. Because every other day, I'm also off when there are games going on, like Black Friday or whatever. So, yeah, it wasn't a successful early slate, but it's always an enjoyable way to spend the workday. Tilting your face off at Darcy Kemper giving up 8 goals on however many expecteds, while benefiting from LA getting 7 goals on like 1.2 expected goals. So, just really fun all the way around.
Yeah. No, I went into this slate being like, I have to go into work. So I tried to get some stuff prepared beforehand. Didn't prepare enough. All I wanted in this world was to have my first afternoon slate go well. Because last year, like it was just every afternoon game. I would go 5 of 8 on a slate on a Saturday, but like all 3 afternoon games would be just nuked and I would just forget and then I would be mad. So yeah, I don't know what it is with afternoon games and me. It's in my head now. So just ready for Saturday when I'm sure we have more afternoon games that are going to tilt my ever living face off. Not going to get into all my bets that failed. We can talk about that at another point in time.
Yes, follow DJ on Twitter if you want a bet by bet recap of what broke his soul, even if it was a simple shot on goal or whatever. This dude will sweat it harder than anything you've ever sweated in your entire life. Yes, so we're here to talk about the Tuesday DraftKings NHL slate. We will use DraftKings pricing, of course, as our guide mark. Most of the time, though, ADP is pretty much in line with like the DraftKings pricing, especially as we get further into the season. Obviously this first week we've had some pretty egregious mispricings on players. Those are getting fleshed out, as we speak, as the days go on, and as the ownership sort of informs where pricing should go on the DK side. So, if you're here for the underdog, thank you. And I know it's not perfect, but I hope we do a good enough job breaking down each game to give you what you need to crush it over on DraftKings or over on underdog.
Yeah.
So,
Honestly, I did kind of want to do like a very quick, I guess, what we're exactly a weekend really to the regular season going into the slate.
mm-hmm.
So I had like 2 takeaways from the first week of hockey. I think number one, and this is going to be underdog specific, but can really go over to DraftKings as well, is I really think we haven't. I think a lot of the preseason like brain of like just the chalk doesn't matter, like play the best plays mentality has seeped a little bit too much into my game. I think an underdog it's even more obvious to get away from because you can legitimately get a 3-man stack that is completely unowned. That happened on, I believe it was Saturday by John Warner, Roto Run,
Yep.
where he had the Teravainen, Bedard, I think it was had Seth Jones. Just smash stack. Deserved every last dollar. And honestly, he should have taken. We should have given him all top 5, and he had a goalie that sunk him. And like I'm sitting there, like I drafted Bedard. I had 1 Bedard, Seth Jones. I had 2 or 3 Bedards or 4 Bedards or whatever. I had some, and like that did lift my boat. But like, it is unbelievable. That is the only team.
Yeah.
I mean, unless there was a team that had but like it's insane. But no one played it on DraftKings. Like,
yeah, no, that was particularly frustrating for me because Friday night I played Bedard, on a 4-game slate at 5% owned and got burned, and so I didn't go back there. But the thing about like underdog in these larger slates is that I feel like stacking on those slates is more powerful because there's just going to be so much spread ownership. Like obviously in a draft format, it's a little different. Like McKinnon's going to be roughly 1/6 owned, almost every time he'll be drafted, if not every time. I can't imagine a draft where he's not getting picked. So like that matters a little bit, but especially when we get to like round 3, 4, 5, 6, like it doesn't really matter who you're taking. Like you're going to get a good player there. So getting that correlation just sort of boost your upside so much more than it does on like these smaller slates, where if a guy scores 2 goals on a 4-game slate, he's going to be in the winner. There's almost no way, barring, some of the weirdest, like, oh, well, in the first round, it was McKinnon and Matthews, and McKinnon got 20, but Matthews got 80, whatever, like that sort of thing. Like, that's just not going to happen. That like you avoid that on a smaller slate, but on a larger slate, there's so many more pitfalls to run into. That like the benefit you get for being right about a stack is just worth more. And I feel like that's contradictory to what a lot of people just intuitively think, because I struggled with this for years, just trying to conceptualize it when a person like Blender would talk about it, with respect to like baseball and stack sizes and even football and whatnot. And I think Jam to Win also covers it, like based on the size of an NFL slate. But sort of like that correlation on these larger slates gets really powerful. So I really did respect what John did there on the Chicago 3-man. So it's just a little bit of underdog alpha for you, I guess, if you're drafting into the slate. Is don't be afraid to stack up. Teravainen's not an optimal play, but if you have Bedard in there, you need the ceiling to be right anyway, and the upside is worth it. When you're talking about 200x your entry fee to first place.
Yeah, but again, I think that what you said, everything I agree with, but definitely be particular. Like, do not say, "Oh, I took Austin Matthews," and like I listened to what Matt said, and Nylander is like the next guy. Like, I think that kind of stuff is a tougher needle to thread. It's not impossible, obviously, but definitely be very mindful of that stack you're putting into your lineup, and that like Bedard and Teravainen and Seth Jones make a metric ton of sense. They're completely 5-on-5 power play correlated. Bedard getting there could easily come with those two along for the right, especially when Nick Foligno is sort of the last guy in on that 5-on-5 stack. It's like, well, that's not going to help all that much. Yes, I agree. The other main takeaway I kind of like was already alluding to, and you basically jumped into it. It was not only getting, further down the rabbit hole on stacks, but overstacking as a general principle, which you just kind of ran with. But I think in DraftKings, like that, it's not that you have to go insane, but I do think that we're going to see more and more 4 and 5 mans to that win slates overall. So like that is something I'm really starting to hone in on more and more. We're like, and like, I'm gonna ask the question. This is kind of what I was thinking about before we started. Is like, when you do a 4 or 5 man stack, is it better to try to go like, let me start over. Austin Matthews and the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be option A. Okay. And option B is going to be the Anaheim Ducks. Do you think that it's significantly better, or like, is there like a way of thinking about it where you're like, okay, like Toronto's chalky, and I'm going to build a more alpha brain play of that succeeding, but doesn't it almost make it harder to win if you're right?
So
it does.
I'm not
so
going, I'm not going to address your question directly,
you get where I'm going.
I'm not going to address it directly right off the bat, because where my head went as soon as you started talking about this was thinking about my last week of play. And of course, I have not won a GPP in this first week. Think I've cashed once, so like, far be it for me to say like I'm the expert here. But this first week I think is an interesting and maybe separate conversation because of just how soft pricing was. In that I think overstacking when there's so many when there's so many good values available to you at every single price point is maybe missing the point of overstacking. So like I didn't do it on these larger slates. Maybe it would have worked in some circumstances. I'm not really sure. But I think like the value portion of it, where there's efficient pricing, I think the overstacking gets more and more powerful. Because again, it's so much easier for the field to walk into traps of players who just don't score enough points to get there. So that 6-goal game, that 7-goal game is far more powerful when you don't have the 3K player who's power play 1, line 1 on a different game on the slate. It just makes it easier to accumulate points very quickly that your opponents don't also have in their lineups. So that's kind of where my head first goes when I'm thinking about overstacking. 4-stack, 4-stack isn't really even an overstack. Like 5-stacking, I think, is sort of where the meta might be going, especially if NFL is any indicator, where all the sim bros are playing their overstacks, their triple stack QBs, whatnot. I kind of get the same sense that the NHL should be functioning in the same way, where it's not necessarily that, okay, well, obviously Purdy can't throw the ball to Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk on a touchdown, but like the game environment sort of leads to better outcomes. And so thinking of that in hockey, like, yes, Crosby, Malkin, Raquel, Carlson, and Letang can't all get a point on the same power play goal. But if there's 6 power plays, well, then you're sort of the tide lifting all boats if that power play does well. And that's sort of where I think we're getting to. We're at this point in the season where pricing is getting more and more efficient, is we're betting more on those outlier outcomes in game spots than we are like the actual players themselves, if that makes sense. So I'm certainly going to be mixing in these larger stacks as we move forward. But I haven't had a chance on this slate to fully dive into pricing to really think about it. So I guess if you're telling me to pick one, I'm going to go with Toronto because like I don't think that it's as powerful to stack a lower ish total team or overly so. Just because I don't feel like there's the range of outcomes feels far more right skewed with Toronto than it does with a team like Anaheim. And so that's sort of where, even though you're spending a lot, I think that the power of the overstacking comes through with more of the concentrated offense, explosive upside type mentality there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't we let you share your screen and we'll start going game by game, or this is never going to be over with by 10, 10, 15.
Yes, I can do that. I mean, we should note that over on DraftKings, it is a $15 50K to first. And also the 360, there's been satellites in the lobby throughout the off season, is 100K to first with a 300K prize pool. So definitely, if you're not considering DraftKings, maybe use that as a push. It's probably one of our final big slates before football sort of takes back over and before basketball takes back over, maybe until election night. So yeah, let's dive into things, starting off with Vancouver and Tampa.
Yes. 6.5 plus 100 on that over. Tampa is a minus 130 at home against the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, this is not a cheap game to play into, but it's an interesting one. Like as the one comment from Malik here, it's like Ottawa 8-7. Well, if it's 8-7 here, I don't know how exactly you're going to play that to success. But what are your thoughts as we kick this one off?
Yeah, I mean, I had a thought and then I lost it.
Brandon Hagel.
Well, no, I'm going to start with Vancouver because
okay.
Yeah, I was going to talk about their line changes. I had a different thought. I don't know what you said that ruined it, but it ruined it. Thank you, DJ.
You're welcome.
They switched up all their lines. Vancouver did. Hoglander to the Miller-Besser line, Heinen to the Pedersen-DeBrusk line, and Sprong down to the fourth line. That's just the name of the game. So, yeah, maybe don't play Daniel Sprong, or do. I don't really care. He can score a goal from any time, or from any place, anytime. Be on the lookout. I expect Connor Garland to play, but he missed practice today, I believe, and is a game time decision. Vancouver's pretty expensive. If you want to bet on Hoglander, I think that's the line I would go with. Obviously, Hoglander's an awesome player. He was an awesome point producer last year with pretty much no power play, points production to work off of. So although he's not much of a shooter, Miller and Besser are not going to steal shots necessarily, and they're pretty good playmakers themselves. So I like the Vancouver first line more than I like any other line on the Vancouver side. But of course, the primary focus is probably going to be Tampa Bay. Tampa looks like they're running this Darren Radish thing into the ground. He's still on their top power play as of today. Like they ran practice and that's where he practiced. So it's not often you get a 3,100 defenseman that is truly like a trigger man on the power play. He is there to be the Steven Stamkos of their power play. He's not Steven Stamkos, but you don't need to be anywhere close to Steven Stamkos to have the sort of upside that you just simply don't see at 3,100 for a defenseman. So that puts him in very strong consideration. What are your thoughts on this game other than anything I just said?
No, you said a lot. It doesn't really matter what you're playing on Tampa. If it doesn't include Nikita Kucherov, I disagree. The power play scored twice. It was Kucherov and point. Neither time was Jake Gensel out there. Weirdly enough, Paul was.
Yep.
Did they switch that in practice?
Yeah. So I'll get to that in a second. I remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
I remember what I was going to say.
There you go.
And it was, if you didn't watch last week's streams, just making sure that one, this is on the podcast feed. So if you want some visuals, head on over to DJ's YouTube channel. It's linked in the description. But if you are new here, basically the columns we care about, obviously your DK salary, how much they cost, and then these are all index stats. So last year's index stats, not a projection or anything, and it's all situations, so account for context and whatnot for yourself, and it's just showing how that player fared versus players of a similar age to sort of account for the aging curve, in the areas of DK points per minute, Corsi per minute, and also primary points per minute. And so these are all index numbers, which is why, Kucherov is 2.7. That means he's 2.7 times better at getting primary points than the average player in the NHL. So that's all that this means. And then some minor stuff, pop in the Discord if you really want to talk about, minor league production. We're at this point, though, we're on a big enough slate where that probably isn't too relevant. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Getting back to the Nick Paul Gensel thing, it was pretty basic. Nick Paul was taking faceoffs and then sometimes changing. Sometimes he didn't change, and that's how Nick Paul wound up on the ice. So yeah, Gensel's a pretty rough play, I think, with that context in mind. And it seems unlikely that they go 11-7 again. Michael Eyssimont should return to the lineup. So that to me sort of kills the Kucherov vibe, just because, if Kucherov has a super duper mega smash, Gensel and Point are probably still getting there. But that doesn't really change anything about Darren Radish for me. Like, I think he's one of the top defensive plays on the slate.
Yeah, and that's fine. I guess that's the only one up. I don't have a lot of interest in this game.
All right.
Overall, the 11-7 going away is the toughest part, and you already covered Vancouver, and it's just not a matchup I'm overtly wanting to opt into at the current pricing. But we can move over to Vegas and Washington, unless if there's anything else you wanted to finish up on.
Nope. Let's do it.
Vegas at Washington, the rematch of the 2019 Stanley Cup, 20 Stanley Cup, 19, 18, 18 Stanley Cup?
2018. 2018.
2018. Yeah. I was going, it's a 6 over under with a minus 108 on that over. Washington is a home dog at plus 114 and Vegas minus 135. Back to you in the studio.
Yep. New lines for Washington after getting blitzed by New Jersey on opening night. Protas with Strome and Ovechkin. Ignore the obviously OVs on power play 1.
I was about to say, what the heck are you doing? But here we go.
Yeah. What's important here is that Ovi actually switched over to right wing. He's, for his almost entire career, played left wing. Obviously, there was an infamous season where he played as a right wing and still got first team all NHL at both left wing and right wing because he was unanimous, but basically the writers were split whether they knew he was playing right wing or not. So that's several years ago, of course. This is not several years ago Ovechkin, but it does sort of hurt his shot rate, just the way I'm envisioning things, because even at 5-on-5, he's more of a, you're kind of just setting him up like a garden gnome and just hoping to feed him for shots. He's not really creating much on his own these days. But Protas is fine. It's just not it's not a good switch. It's not a good matchup, of course, against Vegas. Even if, William Karlsson still remains out, I'm not sure the latest on his situation. But it's just not very fun. So Ovechkin is fine, but I'm not excited by it. I'm not excited by stacking with Protas. At least Mangiapane had that sort of that one season where he was really, really good. I don't think Protas has that in his bag, even in the slightest. Kind of interested in the second line, not gonna lie. McMichael's looked every bit an NHL player through the preseason. Obviously, this line stuck together because they were fine against the Devils. And then Dubois and Wilson, power play 1, pretty cheap. I think it's a really good sort of filler-ish stack. Maybe you can even tack on a Chychrun or John Carlson if you want to get crazy with things. And then, of course, Logan Thompson revenge game. That's, obvious narrative here for you.
Yeah, if you're again taking our overstacking advice and you've stacked into an expensive stack, I think this is the right line two to go with. And I don't know how popular it'll be. It's a pretty big slate. It's a low total, dog. Not again, a Vegas team is 3-0, and again, I just don't think people are gonna ape into it too much. On the Vegas side, Jack Eichel's now. Are you ready to go over? I really don't have that much to add.
Yes.
Is there one more?
Yep.
Okay. On the Vegas side, Jack Eichel very quickly ascends to 9,300. It's pretty dang warranted. Him, Stone, Hurdle, Olofsson, and Theodore take over that top power play. So, Barbashev has, been fantastic to start the year at 5-on-5, but is slowly going to turn into the, what's it called? The Brandon Hagel I mentioned earlier situation where it's like, how good can you possibly be? And I don't think he's anywhere near as good as Brandon Hagel. So as his price goes up, it becomes kind of unplayable. And like, I'm just not playing Mark Stone at 6,500 no matter what. And I know he's very, very good, and Jack Eichel helps him quite a bit. But like, thank you, Tony. I did smile when I saw that.
I can't get away from it.
I
cannot get away from live.
I'm trying so hard to focus on this thing. I'm not. I actually muted my phone and I'm trying not to look at it. So, Jack Eichel, 9,300. If you're playing him, you're probably playing Mark Stone. I'm not playing Mark Stone at 6,500. The guy doesn't want to shoot the puck. I think if you're doing anything, you're looking at like the Hurdle Olofsson situation, and I just don't think I'm going there. Like, there's other options that exist, and no one's forcing me to do it. And like, I don't think Victor Olofsson's any good.
Yeah, I mean, this is guessing, by the way. Obviously, the top line has been the top line, but last game against Anaheim, they switched things up midway. What'd you say?
I mean, they're 3-0. I can't imagine they're going to nuke anything, but like, yeah, it's the power play has been good too. It's like I think power play stats, I could see Olofsson going down and someone else coming up. I don't even know who that is. Like, it would only be if Carlson returns.
Well, it would be Holtz. I mean, Holtz and Olofsson's flip-flopped is what I'm getting at here. Okay. But yeah, of course, if William Karlsson returns, which I'm not expecting, but like it's possible, so I just at least wanted to mention it. That these things would all change, of course, but it seems like you're not playing Nick Waugh anyway on the slate, so who cares?
Like Hurdle has 2.3 shot attempts per game, and Olofsson has 4.6. Like, I don't know. I mean, you're begging on an efficiency that doesn't, like, my problem with them getting there is
come on, it's Thomas Hurdle, dude. You can't say 2.3 shot attempts per game. Like, dude, it's been 3 games. Come on.
I guess my point is like, you look at that power play configuration, the puck is flowing through Theodore and Eichel as much as possible. Olofsson's the shooter, and Hurdle's crashing the net and playing the net front, and they're trying to, I mean, and Stone is also a good puck distributor. So like, I just feel like if you're not getting that right power play connection, you're kind of asking a lot of Hurdle to kind of lift the Olofsson well. And Dorofeyev does the same thing. So I'd be interested to see if it changes anyways. It just doesn't feel crispy to me. The way I'd like. And I know it's, cheap, it's power play 1, everything should feel wheels up. I think it feels a little bit like just an absolute fish play.
Okay. DJ's fish play of the night is Hurdle Olofsson. That you heard it here. I kind of like it. I don't love it.
I'm also going to bet 2 goals for Olofsson right now.
Yes. But yeah, if I played them, I would definitely be making room for Shea Theodore, who's been pretty awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, yeah, we can move on to New Jersey, Carolina.
All right.
New Jersey played earlier. They shut out Utah, so I'm not expecting anything to change here. Even Markstrom was not playing today, so they should be good to go. Oddly cheap, Jacob Markstrom is. I know on a back-to-back, their money line is going to be pretty low, but, Carolina, if I need to tell you what they do to goaltender scoring, well, maybe I do because you're new here, but they tend to inflate it because they take a lot of shots. Their top line.
You want to guess those lines for the over under and the money line? Do you want to play guess those lines? Which one you want to guess first?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
You guess,
New Jersey,
and I'll check.
plus 145.
Plus 124.
Oh, Okay,
minus
interesting.
148 on the other side. So if you just remove the vig, and I respect that for you because you
There you go.
work
There
like a
you go.
computer. It should be minus 148 and plus 148. Thank you for doing that, and
You're welcome.
removing that ambiguity. Over under.
Uh, uh, 6 with the over slightly favored, maybe minus 112.
It is a 6.5 plus 105.
Really? Huh. Okay.
I was a bit
Um.
surprised. I again, yeah, I am
Yeah.
surprised. I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked because I truly feel like Vegas. The thing is it feels like Carolina is going to shoot from anywhere, and I think that their defense is bad. Like, I don't think it's inherently wrong. I wonder if that total does come down, like that under 6.5 could get smashed. I don't know if I'm willing to place a wager on it myself right now. But I guess all of this to say is that, like, I think people might take a look at the Devils,
Yeah.
and I think inversely they're going to look at Carolina, but we'll get to that, and you're highlighting pieces and reasons why. So why don't you just start
Yeah.
doing it and saying it with your
So.
mouth for the audio listener?
So. Okay. Well, if you would stop saying things with your mouth, then I would be able to speak. Um. Yeah, Seamus Casey has what I think he's a point per game player to start the year, through 4 games, and he's looked every bit the maybe he's not a budding star, but like he looks pretty damn good out there. It'll be really interesting to see what they do when Luke Hughes is healthy. But he's still on that power play too, which means he gets some secondary time with the big guns. You know, if Dougie changes and the other guys don't, like there you go. There's your 2,500 player. You can see over here on the right, he actually does have a pretty decent NCAA profile. It's not like stellar, but it's good enough, and it goes to show that like he's going to shoot when he gets a chance. He doesn't quite get the minutes that you might want, but again, 2,500, you're just looking for a punt. I like it fine, and it's also a decent way to fit. Timo, Hughes, Bratt. Maybe you don't have room for Dougie in that build. I don't mind it as a little correlation. Just a little sweetener there. But I think the main draw is, of course, the top line. Timo's probably 1,000 underpriced. If this game sticks at a 6.5, like obviously that's as high as it gets, all out, other than the insane circumstances. So like, yeah, this is a pretty good stack. They're perfectly correlated, and Jack Hughes should not be cheaper than Eichel. Like, especially. Maybe the matchup matters, but like, I don't know, especially a low ownership like he will be. I really like the top line for New Jersey. Carolina, what do you got for me here?
I agree. Let's, I think you'd have to start with Svechnikov. He had 12 shot attempts in the first game, ends up being with that Aho Jarvis 5-on-5 in full power play. That does feel very good for his bags. It seemed like it was going to be all over the map, and there it is. Goff's a spare top power play, but I don't even think it's necessary. I just think, like, again, just thinking through this game and the fact that, we were sort of like surprised by that total. I think it'll, catch other people as well. I don't know if anyone's going to game stack this, and you inherently can. So Matt, if I were to say, guess how many minutes Goff's had, if you didn't look already, what do
I'm
you think he
looking at
had in
it.
game one?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Trailing game, but he had 23.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things where it's like, if you are going to build that game stack, I think you could do it pretty easily. You just use Svechnikov with Gossespierre, and then you run it with the Jack Hughes line. I like that a lot. That's sort of like how contrarian are you looking? I don't know, but like, Markstrom is going to be the chalk goalie. I don't think that's even a question. Like, I think he's the highest owned goalie. Well, maybe we'll get to something I didn't see, but like, that's probably going to be the case. And that's just going to keep people out of this game almost entirely. So I really like that entire construction. So yeah, and like, maybe you throw in Jarvis. Aho at 71. It feels maybe doable, but I doubt it. Like, it's going to be tough, but like, that's sort of my build idea right now.
Yeah, and it's another side where the top line looks to be perfectly correlated. We saw practice again, and they kept this. So even though they weren't going to do this, and then did it last game, and then they got not necessarily pulverized, but they were pretty inept offensively against Tampa. They're keeping this, so, and it's an even cheaper version of New Jersey one. So really, just pick a side, rip it up, and this side you even get Shane Gostisbehere, who I think at worst is like an 18, 19-minute player. It looks
Mhm.
like based on the first couple periods, the run of play was literally just, first pair, second pair, third pair, first pair, second pair. Like they didn't really seem to be skewing heavily, which I thought was a major concern because Gostisbehere's inefficiencies at 5-on-5. But Sean Walker's a really good player too. So that pairing was every bit as used as these top two pairs. And then with the trailing game state, of course, Gostisbehere is on the ice a whole lot more in the third period, which gets him elevated. Which again, for me, is even a recalibration of what I was expecting coming in. So Shane Gostisbehere makes sense also at 3,200. And we've already seen through the first few games there are a lot of viable, cheaper defensemen to sort through. So
Absolutely.
Moving over to Florida and Columbus, do you have those lines up for us?
Yeah, Florida on a back-to-back, only a -175 road favorite at Columbus. Columbus coming off a pretty big win at Colorado. I do believe it was at Colorado. So it's a 6.5 -105. There's certainly value in this game, value that will be piled on. It's the highest total we've gotten to so far, and I think it's right up there with the highest totals on the. I think it is tied for the highest total on the slate. Tied for the highest total on the slate. So Florida has one of the highest implied team totals, and without Barkov, I believe that without Matt Tkachuk, they already confirmed it. You have some power play one pieces and some elite, options in Lundell, who was not in the top power play, and Evan Rodriguez, who I believe was on the top power play. Let me actually just look at the Boston Lions that game. They just played today, and while I was watching, I honestly didn't take note, but it was it was Erod.
Do you not trust
right.
me? Do you not trust me, DJ? Do you not trust me?
I just wasn't looking at the screen that we were on, but what Matt has on the screen is exactly correct. So Erod, Bennett, Verhaeghe, all power play one top line.
What's
I
funny
think
is I think that's actually not
you're
correct. I think Samoskevich was power play too, but yeah, doesn't matter.
Samoskevich, Bolinkus, Lusterrain, and Lundell Ekblad.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's your your chalk stack of the night is the Erod Bennett Verhaeghe thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're perfectly correlated. They're all like these just chuckers. I mean, they're all just donkey chuckers. Like you watch these three guys play. If it's the Evander Kane, like if they cross the blue line with the puck, they're firing it at the goalie's crest. It makes me a little worried. Like obviously Verhaeghe's like a super talented player. Rodriguez and Bennett, they're not. And I'm not sure Verhaeghe's good enough to really sustain like a 5-on-5 line. They don't have to deal with this for a long time. So like it's not like they're super incentivized if it quote wouldn't work to like find something new. And I'm just kind of convinced that this won't work. So like I think one-offing this line makes more sense than full stacking it. Like of course you can, but I just don't think that the ownership is going to soften at all. Like I think it'll be 10, 11, 12% owned on a back-to-back with like really odd situations, like Tkachuk out, Barkov out, Tkachuk not out for long term, Barkov seemingly not out for long term either. Like this just feels like a stopgap measure. I was going to stack something. I'd honestly just stack Listerine and Lundell Reinhart because we know the line works. Yes, you're not getting the perfectly correlated power play one, but like, you're getting Lundell and Listerine who crushed throughout the playoffs last year. What can they do against Columbus? Who knows? So I kind of prefer the first line here.
I do too. I know. And it's like, man, you think like, you need the top power play, but like in reality, I just don't think that Columbus has anything to go against that Lundell, Reinhart, Lusterrain. And like, I think that is truly the number one line, as you put it. And unfortunately, the power play isn't perfect, but I don't think they need it. And if they get up, how many penalties are they really going to call on Columbus at that point? It's like the game breakers that penalties are out too. Like it's not like they won't get power plays, it's Columbus, but I think if anything, if I'm playing Florida, I'm going Lundell, Lusterrain, and Reinhart all the way through. You might be thinking to yourself, and Bokus top power play, you're not mentioning him. They did go 11-7. I expect that to run back, and Bokus had 11 minutes, and this Bolinskis, if you know his name, say it for me, but he had 10. So those guys are just clear specialists. And maybe if they're trailing, they'll get some more run. But like, again, you're building a stack around them succeeding. So what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, there's no need on this slate to play guys who have like a 10-minute projection. And I don't expect the 11-7 to change. Like I'm pretty sure their only scratches today were Barkov and Kachuk. So like they don't have anyone else on their roster because those guys aren't going to IR. So like they're just going to roll 11-7 again here. Which is another, feather in the cap of like a one-off for Hagee or Bennett or something, because it's not a guarantee that those two guys would be out on the ice at the same time, for the same reason that, when Kucherov is in 11-7 situations, he floats around the lineup. For Hagee's going to get a shift with Reinhart probably, here, there, and everywhere. So like, it makes it a lot more viable for a one-off in an 11-7 situation. On the other side, a team that should be able to take advantage of a 1 tired, 2 banged up, and 3 on the road. Florida side is this Columbus side that still has Kent Johnson at 2,700. They're just handing him away to us. Kent Johnson was not chalk over the weekend. Even Chinakhov, Monahan, Marchenko got pretty owned against Colorado. I want to say they were like 7-8%. Kent Johnson was lower than that, which, like, I don't know. I just prefer Kent Johnson, I guess. Sillinger's fine, but Kent Johnson really does seem like he's taken the next step. I even saw him out there killing a penalty. Like, last year under Vincent, I'm not sure that I would have imagined him on the ice ever in a third period, let alone killing a penalty. So Kent Johnson feels like he's fully arrived. He has a great prospect profile. He's crushed every level up until the NHL, and I think it just took until now for him to find his legs. So I'll go Kent Johnson here as like my favorite play of the team, but the entire Columbus side is cheap. They're maybe leverage off of Florida. Maybe they're getting into game stack. I'm not sure. But I also really like Daniil Tarasov or Merce-Linkens, whoever starts at 7,200. Just against, ownership, Florida side, which again will just chuck, almost their entire top 6 and D pairs will just chuck from anywhere. And they don't have that playmaking ability of Barkov and Kachuk in the lineup.
Yeah. And I do think that the entire power play for Columbus was kind of in a blender last game, and it kind of felt very just not cohesive. So I'd keep an eye on that too, just to see like what ends up happening there. But, I do think that Kent Johnson will be a staple. It's just like, will he correlate well with Sillinger on the top power play? It does feel like another cheap stack that won't even get as much consideration as it definitely should. It's incredibly cheap. It's incredibly well correlated, and Florida's banged up on a back-to-back, and like people still just, I don't think will click on that for Columbus because Marchenko is 3,900 and like, it's okay, whatever. Fantilli's 4,100. It's like, yeah, these are fine. Like I whatever, but I do think that it's just like,
I'm probably and I'm probably just going to change this because Fantilli is not second line. He's getting third line minutes at the moment. And, Sillinger and Johnson are really driving the bus. So you could even call them line 1 and I would not be too offended. So don't really worry about line 3 here by any stretch. But all right, let's keep things going into Minnesota taking on St. Louis. Minnesota will not have Eriksson Ek. Is that right? I think they're back at home later in the week. I think I'm mixing up now who somebody was like, they're gonna.
It's a broken nose. I don't know if we know.
Okay, yes, that's right. I think he's gonna join the team, and I think he'll actually play.
I think he'll play.
Okay,
but we don't know.
Yeah. So
if the sports books are any indicator, they're a -120 road favorite. It's a 6 over under -105. We're not guessing this one. You just get to know the answer for free. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
It's not the game is like, it feels like it's getting priced up, both teams. Like Kyrou is 7K now, Boldly, the cover boy, 7,100. It's definitely getting to where it's probably gonna, they're actually getting efficiently priced, both of them. It's not a very high total, but I do think that this is another game that I am interested in. I just don't know how I'd play it exactly. And of course, we don't know the Eriksson Ek news to draw much of a conclusion at this point. But again, assuming Eriksson Ek plays, Eriksson Ek, Boldly, I'm not playing 5,100 Rock Faber. I'm not playing 6,200 Mark Stone. These are just guys I don't play when they're priced up, which is the case. So bookie saying Ek didn't travel, but I thought he was supposed.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
he
I
didn't
just
travel to Winnipeg. That's all we know. He didn't go to
yeah
Winnipeg, but I saw
yeah.
he was expected to return for their next game after that. So I don't know.
What are we
In any
thinking? What are we
case,
thinking here?
yeah, regardless of whether it's 4,900 Hartman on power play one or 7,600 Joel Eriksson, I can safely say I don't really care. It's just the top line for me or nothing. On this slate. I don't fear St. Louis really. The pricing on Minnesota 2 is just a little bit egregious compared to the rest of the slate. And so, yes, you're paying top dollar for Kaprizov, but you're probably getting a decent discount on Zuccarello. And then Rossi, of course, just fits. He helps even out the cost. You don't need to play him, but he's a pretty good player as well. So with no Jared Spurgeon, I actually meant to check the minutes of their deep pairs last game. But Declan Chisholm dressed and was power play 2. He's still the minimum. He played 17 minutes last game. So I think he's another viable filler. He's pretty decent and shoots a little bit. I don't know. Certainly another fine punt and way to correlate Kaprizov if you just want some punt to fill in some other high end players alongside Kaprizov. Any interest in
Yeah.
St. Louis here? I should note there's new lines with Saad, Thomas, Neighbors, and then Holloway down the line 3. Any interest here in anyone? I know you mentioned Kyrie's price.
Yeah. I don't honestly like I do think that even though the Wild haven't been fantastic, it's kind of like do I really want to abandon my prior of thinking this is a good hockey team? Do I really want to, bet on a St. Louis team that's been priced up probably more due to efficiency than like legitimately being really good? And I think the answers are just going to be no here for me. And like, I love Jordan Cairo. I will be, the loudest cheerer for every goal he has all season long, but kind of feel like we missed the boat if you missed the boat, and if you got on, you got on. But like Falk is 5,400 now, so no longer is he 4,600. Just steadily climbed to the right price. Kyrou has steadily climbed to the right price at 7K. Just I don't think I'm buying the high here. When if it's Thomas and Kyrou, I might have changed my tune, but still not. So alas, I think I move on to the next game and say this game is interesting, but I don't know how I'd play it, so I'm probably just not gonna. Just feels like you're
Just another
like
punt
Kaprizov's really good
garbage.
though, but
Yeah, Spurgeon is definitely going to be out. There's articles
yeah,
already saying that they don't know what his deal is and that they're extremely worried with with his injury history. So it doesn't seem like he's anywhere close to returning. But obviously we'll see. The one player on St. Louis that I think I could be talked into is Philip Broberg. I don't mind even a Brandon Saad, kind of mini stack to just fill in some garbage. But Broberg has been getting 20 minutes a night and 2,800. Yeah, there's at least a chance that he's worth 4K come the end of the season. So again, this is just the punt D show, I guess, but another good option there for you. Heading over to Seattle and Nashville. I'm actually going to start with Nashville because we don't really know what Seattle's going to do. They were just a fucking tire fire against Dallas lines wise. But we did get news out of Nashville, and it starts with Cole Smith, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault. I don't think that's going to cut it, but that's just me. Maybe building an actual NHL line without both Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault, who can't do anything anymore besides shoot the puck, which is great. They're really good at shooting, but this Nashville team was so good last year. Why don't you just build the same team, but instead of saying, hey, Colton Sissons, you're going to need to score 15 goals for us, you just plug Steven Stamkos in that spot and say, hey, this line's going to try to do the same thing, but we're going to have Steven Stamkos finishing. Yes, it's the third line, but it doesn't really matter. You still have Philip Forsberg on your top line. Just spread it out. It's okay. Jonathan Marchessault, he's a big boy. He will live. He's making his money. If you make him the third liner, who cares? You just can't play these two guys together. So I'm pretty turned off by that. But there's a real chance that the Seattle team is, I think, a little bit of fun, especially, maybe not without Vince Dunn. But yeah, pricing here seems to work if you like it.
I will say that like while Stamkos is not playing maybe as well as we'd like overall as a player, he has been putting up very, very unlucky scores comparatively to what he's actually producing. Like he is
Yes,
shooting
great.
quite
He
a
played
bit.
one game. Yes, congratulations, everyone.
Two games, count them, 8 shots on goal, tons of minutes, lots of power play looks, a shot bonus, I may add. Like, I'm not saying you have to play Stamkos by any stretch of the imagination, but like, it's sort of a situation where at some point the well will snap. I don't know if this is the spot. I don't even know how you play it if it is though, because like, are you like 6,200 for
Yeah, you
Marchessault
play.
is
Yeah, you play
play him in.
Stamkos and Yossi. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Are you paying 15K
I
for that? Like, I'd rather just play
I know
Forsberg.
that.
In all honesty.
I agree. I think it's Roman Yossi and Philippe Forsberg. I just it's a game that like I want to find a way to play this Nashville if possible because I don't think it's going to be very popular just because they haven't produced. But
Yeah.
should they have produced better? Yes, I think absolutely. Like Yossi's gotten there just because he had that. I mean, like without again, that's just super stupid. But 9 shots on goal and 4 block shots without a point. He still had 24.7
Yeah.
DraftKings points. Did not get assists. Did not get a goal. There's no points involved. Just shooting and blocking. Like it's just one of those things where it's like you see these numbers. And it's 2 games, and like everything we're talking about is reactionary to what we've seen. Though it's like hard to. But like it's Roman Yossi. It's not like this is a random guy that's getting a big role. That's like holy crap. Like this is probably, other than Kale
Yeah.
McCarr, the best defenseman for fantasy. So, like, I want to try to buy in at the right time. I think this is a good bet to make. People might not be on it. People respect Seattle defensively. They will be without, I would argue,
Yeah.
their best defenseman overall as a total package. I want to make a bet here. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know what bet to make. I was thinking, could you play Forsberg, Stamkos, and Yossi and say, like, they score 2 on the power play, they all get their shots bonuses. You can bring it back with Seattle for cheap. This game ends up going crazy. Like, that's another game where, again, like, thinking about how this game gets to a point of breaking the entire slate and you win all the money. And, like, it's not that hard to conceptualize, and I don't think it'll be owned.
Yeah, I would rather just play Yossi as a one-off, honestly. Like
All right,
you
you and
showed.
GA can go play Kaprizov and Boldly and Yossi and have fun.
Okay, sounds good. On the Seattle front,
Oh, go on.
yes, Vince Dunn missed last game, so Riker Evans stepped into a larger role. It even looked like he moved from the third pair to the top pair at the end of that game versus Dallas. So again, just another option. But Brandon Montour was the big beneficiary. He played a bunch. I think he had 5 shots. So like that's cool, but he's expensive. The power plays, the lines were kind of a mess. The best I could tell, Bjorkstrand and Burakovsky flipped one another. So Schwartz, Stevenson, and Bjorkstrand is kind of like their top line, so to speak. And then Beniers, Tolvin, and Burakovsky, and McCann, Wright, Eberle were sort of their middle 6. And then, of course, the fourth line, who cares? This all could change. Again, they got shut out. So we're just simply not sure. And they're also a team who will very much split power play time down the middle. So, like, even though it's power play 2, it doesn't really matter. But yes, should at least note that. And I think some of this coloration might be off. I think that's more likely what we're gonna see, but not positive. Because they got shut out and we didn't get a practice today. So
Yep.
Anything you want to say about them? Any particular stacks you like? Because to me it's all a little bit too expensive, but I'll hear arguments for sure.
I don't know if I have any. I definitely want to see what they have. It's kind of, I mean, the thing I said, I don't know when I said it to you, but I'm like, every game against Dallas for every team I'm taking with a grain of salt. Like this Seattle
Mhm.
team did lose 2-0. They had, if you go to like, what's it called? Freaking Hockey Viz, the amount of shots they missed the net with. But again, like that is part of how good Dallas is, though. I'm not saying that they missed the net exclusively because they were unlucky. Like they missed the net because Dallas is so freaking good defensively at every line, it's like you can't find as many lanes. I
I'm
am interested
smelling.
if I was going. What?
No, I'm smelling a nice
Wait, what?
transition here.
Oh,
Okay, I'm just
Well,
going
let
to
me
move on.
finish
Even
my
though you
last
were
thought. My last thought
yes,
is I love Shane Wright. If I'm bringing it back, I'm playing Shane Wright. They put him up with McCann and Eberle. I think they're just going to force the issue. And I think that he is the most talented goal scorer on this team. I said it. We can move
bang,
on and transition
bang.
into the next team that I love. And I put the bet in $100, Stanley Cup champion, Dallas Stars. Take it away.
I did not think I would be late to the punch on calling Shane Wright the best player on the Seattle Kraken. But DJ beat me to it, so I guess I lose that one. All right, San Jose, Dallas. Yes, San Jose, fresh off of a scintillating 2-0 loss to the Anaheim Ducks, head into Dallas without Macklin Celebrini. Dallas with Dallas. I think we can pretty much just write this off. If you really need to know, these were updated in practice today, so you can check that out. I think I screwed up how to spell his name, and Matt Benning, who cares? Yeah,
Yeah, don't
you
play the Sharks. You
you
don't have
can't.
to.
Yeah, please do not. Okay. No information on Maverick Bork still. He's like he's turning into Rupe Hintz now. Like, is he playing? Is he
Yep.
not? I don't know. Last game, Johnston got a lot of time with Robertson Hintz. I'm just simply not betting on that sticking until we see Maverick Bork there to play third line center. Evgeny Dodonov was also up with Hintz and Robertson. Who knows? It was a defensive game. Obviously, they were up, 2-0 or 3-0 throughout. So yeah, I don't really think we know much about Dallas. They're playing the Sharks. We're going to get morning skate from them, I presume. And so then I'll make my decisions. But where's your first thought here?
It's just like the amount of lineups tomorrow that are just going to be Florida 1 or 2, in my opinion, and whatever you want to do on Dallas. It's just, I mean, that is your chalk. And I think the Dallas chalk is good chalk. Yes, GA, you got me good. All right. I know. I'm not ripping you. I love Minnesota. I'm literally I don't want to play against Minnesota because I love Minnesota and I think they're good. And that's my prior. So you literally are saying that I'm wrong, but I'm right. Anyways, though, the thing is that it's going to be uber chalk. Hintz, Robertson. I think Miro gets some ownership. I think Harley gets some ownership. I am going to probably, like I said, play Florida differently. I don't know how different I'd get on Dallas. I think again, we need to know what we don't know right now, which is if Bjork is in, is it Stankoven, Johnson, Bjork? If that again, there's a lot of things that could change this up, but I think I'm centering it around whatever the Johnson Robertson situation is going to look like. If it is Bjork, Johnston, Stankoven, I do think my slappy brain will just I won't even the buttons will just click themselves. Just because I'm truly a degenerate slappy for Wyatt Johnston, Logan Stankoven, and Maverick Bjork. Would that mean that Jamie Benn goes up with Hintz and Robert? There's just something's getting played from Dallas by me. I don't know what it is yet.
Number one with a bullet through 3 games in expected fantasy points for the team is Mason Marchment. He has,
as expected.
Yes, of course. He has 2 goals, 2 primary assists, 8 shots on 19 shot attempts, and 1.2 expected goals in that time frame. Yeah, that's pretty good. That line is fully correlated. They are going to basically split power play time down the middle. And if Maverick Bork remains out of the lineup, there's really no reason to expect there to be a viable 4th line. Of course, if Dodanov's on the 4th line, it's at least possible they play more time than you'd expect. But yeah, the second line in Dallas is in a really good spot. You even get a nice little Thomas Harley correlation for some extra spice. But yeah, just wanted to mention that because I'm sure the early off-season bingo cards of Mason Marchment smashing were really not expected to be scratched off so early. And now's a good time to play, depth type matchups against a San Jose team that has a second line center of Will Smith and a third line center of either Barclay Goodrow or Alex Wenberg. Yeah, not great on that part. So Chicago and Calgary. Chicago practice today. Obviously, they did not change much. Of course, after Bedard and Teravainen smash against Edmonton, they get cheaper heading into a matchup against Calgary, which is just great. I'm really, really excited to lose money on Connor Bedard once again.
Yep.
But DJ, what do you have on this game for us?
I would, whatever you do, try to figure out if Matt's playing Connor Bedard. If Matt is playing Connor Bedard, do not play Connor Bedard. If Matt is not playing Connor Bedard, Giga Smash. Hit the button.
Thank
put
you.
every last dollar you have on every Connor Bedard thing you can possibly put it on. It's impressive, truly. No, I mean, it's like, I do think that like there are some things that should put you in jail for life. And like maybe we should consider even stricter penalties. And if you play Chicago without Connor Bedard, that is a situation where like I'm calling I don't know what number to call, but there's numbers that need to be called. There's numbers you need to receive yourself to call to yourself and exclude. I don't know what it looks like, but it's the wrong answer. Whatever you think it might be, that Bedard, like I think with 100% certainty there will not be a slate this season where Chicago wins without Bedard in the build.
Yep.
So that's it.
Yeah, and just think of the center pricing that we've gone over, at the top end. We have well, we're going to get
like,
to McDavid, of course, and
he should be 80, at least 8,200.
Yeah.
I think higher, like 85. But like
Jack Eichel,
75 is wrong.
Jack Eichel is 9,300 against Washington. Jack Hughes is 9K against Carolina. JT Miller is 7,800 against Tampa. Braden Point is 77 against Vancouver. Eriksson Ek 76 against St. Louis. Pedersen 72. Like Ahu 71. Kadri 69. Like Bedard is just like his upside is immaculate on the season. Like this price, like he very well could be better than Jack Eichel this year fantasy wise. I'm not sure we've seen enough to say that with certainty. But 7,500 against Calgary, who again I think is the worst team in the league, despite them I think are 3-0 right now.
They're 3-0.
Like this,
3-0.
they're really bad. Like
I'm gonna ask you,
fundamentally believe that. Go ahead.
I'm gonna ask you 3 questions, and also I just realized my laptop isn't plugged in and it's gonna die soon, so I need to find the plug, which is somewhere. We're gonna start with number 1. What is the money line for this game?
I'm going to go straight pick 'em. Calgary minus 110, Chicago minus 110.
You couldn't be more wrong. I mean, Calgary is at home. I mean, come on. It's minus 162 for the Flames plus 136.
Because that's
people are stupid.
That's just wrong. That's wrong. Like, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Michael Backlund is fine. He's not that good. Like, don't worry about him. I'm not worried. Chicago has, I think, the 3 best players in this game.
Now,
what more do you need?
I am going to ask.
Well, God.
How many? I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, it is. I was going to say how many goals have been disallowed that have been scored against the Flames, and I know it's at least 2 because that's what happened against Edmonton. But I would say this is like I think the Flames are actually better than that thought they were. Like it's. I mean, they're 3-0, whatever. They did not look good against the Flyers. The numbers sort of make it seem like a little better, maybe, and they scored 6, and Fedotov was atrocious, and like whatnot. But like, man, this team is not that good, and they looked very bad against Vancouver. Unfortunately, Edmonton just beat themselves, it felt like, and scored 2 that got called back. And like, I think that overall, the take on this slate might just be people thinking like, nah, this Flames team's like good. And that's not the take. That definitely don't believe that. Whatever you do with your money. I do think that the Flames are cheap enough to be in consideration. With all that being said, because on the other end, the Blackhawks team absolutely sucks. Like I think that the Blackhawks, I mean, again, they have Bedard. It's going to lift some boats. Like I think they might be the worst team in the league. Like I think they're worse.
That's
like overall. Like I think if you took, but again, like they might be better. They're better defensively than San Jose, but I don't like. I think their lineup truly, absolutely sucks. But
I don't know. Sure.
Could you game stack this? Like, honestly, that's like my brain is just on game stack mode. Like, could you just do it? Could you just like? It's so cheap. This Flames team is so cheap. Connor's already still 3,300. Anthony Mantha's been good at 2,800. Like, these are not good players, but like they're playing against depth in Chicago, which is useless. Like Pat Maroon is getting run. What are we doing?
I don't know. I just think Chicago passes the eye test for me, as they're fine, and Calgary does not. So we'll
That's
see.
because you're just
I mean,
watching Bedard and yoinking it. You're just yoinking it.
I'm
Bedard.
literally
And then you're
not.
like, this team is good.
Remember, I spent
Oh, yeah,
multiple
you're right.
slates worrying that Philip Kurashev was going to get a point and bury me. Like, I'm watching. I'm out here watching
Yeah.
Alec Martinez praying for him to lay down in front of pucks. Like, I'm fully prepared to see this team look terrible, and I just haven't seen it. They look like a team that actually has structure, unlike prior years. And Teuvo Teravainen is very good. Seth Jones, I would happily trade Seth Jones for Mackenzie Weegar 1-for-1, contract not considered. Maybe that's crazy, but like, I just don't really think that Mackenzie Weegar moves the needle enough for me to say like, yeah, he's going to be at least what 15% owned here. Kadri, Kuzmenko. Yeah, Zari's a good player. I really like Zari and the Backlund Coleman. But guess what? They're going to get tasked with Bedard, who is probably not good defensively, but like Teuvo Teravainen's been a solid defensive player his entire career. Like, I don't really think that that's an exploitable matchup, and we haven't really seen it from Zari in a huge sample. So I'm just gonna fade this ownership and lose because of it, I suppose. But yeah, that's my take of the slate. That like Calgary is not a minus 165 favorite against anyone, let alone a Chicago team with a healthy Bedard.
All right, I'm fine with it. I'm not gonna. No. This was a fun conversation, but I don't think the Flames are going to be all that chalk. Like, I think there's pieces here, but like, what is the chalk going to be?
Well, let's get there because we have one more game.
Okay.
And
the highest total
that game,
slate.
Yes, and that game features Philly and Edmonton.
Guess that money line. Guess that money line. Guess.
Edmonton minus 220.
Minus 225. Wow.
Okay. Wow.
He's learning, folks.
Well, no, I understand where the consensus is on most of these teams. I did not understand the consensus had swung wildly in Calgary's favor at some point. But in any case, yeah, the Flyers first. We know what they're going to look like. We saw practice today. I might not have updated the deep pairs. I don't really care about the deep pairs. It's the right defenseman. But the top line of Michkov, Frost, Tippett is now officially a thing. They are below 15K in total. Yes, it's 1,000 more for Michkov, but again, I'm of the opinion that he could be the most expensive player on the Flyers, and I would still probably play him. And that's with Owen Tippett and Konechny being truly awesome fantasy players. Worth noting, Konechny gets Jet Luchenko as his center, not Sean Couturier. Honestly, probably an upgrade for him offensively. And he also gets Tyson Forster, who is a great two-way player. So yeah, this top power play for the Flyers is all in play. Really, really solid, and it's a good way to bet against this Edmonton team figuring it out. Now, of course, should you bet on that? I'm not sure, but if you are, the Flyers are a great concentrated offense with upside in order to make that bet. So what are your thoughts here on the Flyers?
Yeah, I think inverse, like the one thing I was kind of banging the drum on last year, and that is maybe marginally worse, I'm not even really sure, is that Edmonton is actually very good defensively. And I don't think that this run has been, this 0-3 start is for a lack of defense, as it is maybe just a lack of, a little bit of luck, a little bit of finding this goal scoring, a little bit of putting it together, and a little bit of goaltending as well. But like, I just don't know if I'm betting on this being the game you needed. I get that it's a 6.5. It's, Edmonton has a very, very large implied team total. And this is a Flyers team that will probably have Erik Johnson, Ristolainen going on defense tomorrow, because that's just what they do. So if anything, I think I'm playing Edmonton here, just because I do want to stick to the sort of my priors in general. It's incredibly expensive. There's things I like just as much, if not more. There's game stacks I want to try to put together. And will Edmonton make the mix? I think it's possible, but if I'm doing it, I'm probably going all the way and just betting on this Flyers team being worse than expected. But just again, like, am I putting all of my DraftKings dollars into McDavid, Hyman plus I don't know at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like Jeff
Yeah,
Skinner was there. Is he going to stick? He scored right away and then he disappeared and he's on the top power play. Like, I
they
don't
did
think I'm
not
doing
keep
it.
it either. Like they moved Draisaitl up to the
No.
top line. It's going to be a jumble. So that's
Yep.
certainly something to
So
consider. This is just not correct. It could be, but we have no idea what it's going to look like.
if I'm playing it, I'm playing McDavid Bouchard, and that is doable with all of
Yep.
the somewhat owned pieces that you can afford around it. But like you could definitely make it happen. And like that's the only thing I'm doing here
Yeah, I think that's right.
in this game.
I'm interested to see if if the Draisaitl McDavid sticks. Like that would obviously be of super interest and would just decimate the rest of the lineup. So that's worth considering. I just kind of feel like for Edmonton, like maybe trading your best defensive center wasn't a good strategy when your goalies seemingly have the psyche, have a very fragile psyche. I'm I don't know. Maybe getting Matt Savoy wasn't the franchise savior that he was billed as, but yeah, I think it would be real nice to have a Ryan McLeod who you can throw on the ice and just have nothing happen for a couple minutes here and there, because whatever they're doing is not working for their goalies, and maybe that changes. Maybe it takes another coach firing to change. We saw this last year, so yeah, I mean, I guess it's contrarian, but like Philly one is perfectly correlated, and Edmonton probably gets a line that's perfectly correlated, but they might not. They might have Skinner, RNH, McDavid. They might have Arvidsson move up there. We don't know. So yeah, that's really the only thing I can say about this game is I simply don't know what I'm doing with it, but I'm looking hard for the second line of Edmonton. If this line exists, I'm just betting against it however I can, even if that's like a connect me one off. I'm happy to do so, and just hope that that the upside gets there of my preseason take that this line would be one of the worst defensive lines in hockey. So yeah, I don't know. That's all I have. Anything else you want to talk about before we do top sacks, guarantee goals?
No. Let's do top sacks, guarantee goals. I think I've made my. I will say that one thing I've tried to stick to this year is like not trying to tout every single thing that's kind of good and try to be a little bit more stringent and being like these are like the 4 or 5 teams I genuinely think I'll play. So I think I did pretty good with this slate. I'm like, I'm proud of myself. I'm going to pat myself on the back as we get into our top stacks and I give you a sip of water. So are you ready with your first?
Yeah. I mean, I went to bat for them. I'm going to take the fighting Conradards. So Bedard, Foligno, Teravainen.
I do love it. Day late, dollar short as always. Love to hear it from you. You might as well get your running shoes out. Go chase those points, Matt. That's great. I think that even though I sort of talked about a lot I like, and but I think at the end of the day, like Lundell, Reinhart will be in my lineup. I don't know how I'll pair it. I honestly would consider playing Verhaeghe, like that, just doing those 3 and hoping that like Verhaeghe, Reinhart hook up on the power play. It is sort of like this perfect 3 correlation, but I like the idea of playing Florida just differently, playing something on Columbus on the other side in the Kent Johnston, Cole Sillinger situation. Are they? Yeah, they're not both centers. No. I thought Kent Johnston was the center to start the year. And then like going in a different direction. Like I don't think that's all that chalky. So yeah, that's something I'm really interested in is this Verhaeghe, Reinhart, Lundell type of build. An 11-7.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I'm gonna go for my second one, Carolina 1. This Devils Hurricanes game, I think might be a bit more like so. One, it's a 6.5 right now, which kind of surprises me. Maybe that changes, but I'm pretty sure people are convinced that New Jersey is like this all-world team now. They started their season 4-0, and they've looked pretty good in the process, but they've played Buffalo twice, Utah, and Washington. So like not teams with a ton of punch. And Svechnikov, Aho, Jarvis are perfectly correlated. They're coming in pretty cheap, and I can't imagine they get a ton of ownership either, given a lot of the late slate options that we have already covered. So that's I think just a really good stack. You also get the Shingasa's bear punt alongside it. I don't think that's going to be
Yeah.
monster chalk. Like he probably gets up to like 15, maybe 20% owned. But I imagine most of that will be one-offs. I just can't see Aho getting up above 10. And so I really like that against a high-flying Devils team who I think profiles to have more fun games in their log than they do so far, where it's kind of been four snoozers from start to finish.
Yeah, I love Carolina 1. I think that was going to be my second. So glad I let you go first this time as a good host. I decided last time I went, I think the last 2 times I went first, and I just wanted to be a good partner. So thanks for stealing my stack. That's really cool of you. But I will first off echo that, and then it's so hard because like I don't want to say Dallas and just literally be like I think I'm going to play different, and then be like what I'm going to play is Dallas and Florida, but yeah, maybe I'll just go with a bit of a cheaper. I think honestly that the thing that I keep circling back to is this Pierre-Luc Dubois, Connor McMichael, Tom Wilson situation. I honestly don't even think 4K Jacob Chikrin is inherently incorrect. He did play 22 minutes. He is, as like sort of like looking into defensive metrics over the past few years, like he has been a very consistent rate shooter. I think you could stomach that 3-man pretty easily, and that is not going to get ownership. The one thing about Vegas that I think will eventually come through is that they're not deep, and if they don't have William Karlsson in, there is a lot to attack down the lineup. Like Holtz, Olofsson, are just not good defensive players. So like I am actually interested in like that way of getting unique. I like that stack a lot. That 3-man there.
Yeah, let's play a game on Saturday night. Chikrin was 3,500. Do you know how owned he was then? On like an 11
I have to
slate.
assume it's either 2%.
He was 25% owned. I do not think you're sneaking Jacob Chikrin by anyone, DJ, but thank you for your sneaky upside call with Jake Chikrin at 4K here.
I truly I was like, either he didn't get owned or he got owned a lot. I just don't remember, or maybe I think I played that slate, so I'm kind of surprised. I just said,
I literally
no idea he was.
I knew I had told you this because I complained about it because I'm like, oh, like the donkey, when I make one donkey chalk play and he fails, and everyone else fails, whatever. But I literally had told you that. So I just wanted to, test you and have some fun at your expense.
Before we close entirely here, did you hear about what the Columbus Blue Jackets are doing for like every time they win?
The donkey.
Okay.
Yeah, I posted that in the Discord.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Already been seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're doing what is this exactly? It's a I know the reason is because Johnny Gaudreau used to call everyone donkeys.
Yeah.
It's donkey ears. Yeah. So that is just yeah.
I mean that wheels up Columbus. Yeah, wheels up Columbus all season long for sure. Very, very big fan.
You would get the donkey ears every slate though, for sure, if you were in the Columbus locker room.
Oh God, yes, for sure. All right, let's guarantee a few goals here.
Guarantee goals.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Do you want to start?
No, you can go. I like you to go first.
I'm gonna go 7,400 Brock Besser. No, I'm gonna go Brock Besser. 7,400. Pretty expensive. Just don't think people will get there. I really like Niels Höglander. They obviously had Danton Heinen there, who sucks, and now they have Höglander, who's really good. And yeah, so give me Brock Besser for my expensive guaranteed goal.
Okay. I am gonna go just a little bit. You know what? What number do you have? 7,100? Or what'd you go with?
I went with 74.
74. All right. I'm gonna go with Nazem Kadri, 6,900. Nazem Kadri coming off of 3 games where he's had almost 8 shot attempts per game. I believe he only has 1 goal on the year. He has 2. God, he is good. 2 against the Flyers. That's right. But like this guy is absolutely firing. Like I really just think he's that good. Like that's the thing is like he's that good. They're setting him up. They're looking for him on the power play, and he's playing against the Chicago Blackhawks, who I just think are not good. So I'll go with Kadri at 69. Very nice dollars.
All right. For number 2, I am going to go with Andrei Burakovsky, playing alongside what I think is going to be Beniers and Tolvanen. Check on that. But he's also on the power play across from McCann. I think Burakovsky in the matchup with Nashville, which again, the middle six there is kind of a disaster defensively, as I've argued. Just taking advantage of that. Hopefully, Beniers avoids the O'Reilly matchup. Like, I don't really know how teams view Matty Beniers at this point. I imagine that's Chandler Stevenson sort of viewed as their number one. But it's kind of a line matching thing, but kind of just like a vibes thing based on this game environment. And Seattle being a bit more fun than might meet the eye. So give me Brock Besser and Andrei Burakovsky for my 2 goals. And DJ, what chalk 4K player would you like to mix with your chalk Nazem Kadri?
I would love for you to convince me that Michkov is going to be chalky at 4K against the Oilers.
I
goes up 1,000 in price. He had 0 shots on goal last game after having, I think he does it. This is the time. Like, this is it.
Okay.
I do think he's a really good play. Honestly, like, I was kind of thinking, like, if I build a Michkov, McDavid, Bouchard, and then I could play some little Carolina, little Washington, and just kind of sneak. I mean, just ship 50K. I'm not busy. I could, I'll take it.
Makes sense to me.
What was a very bad Monday, barring Noah Dobson.
Please Noah Dobson. We have families to feed. All right, so
the bread line is full of me.
Precisely. Best of luck on this 9-game slate, everybody. Thank you to those who hung out in the chat. There was Wookie and C. Denny in here just talking about Wayne Hudson, having a grand old time. So thank you to everyone who stopped by, and thank you to everyone who listens to the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at MorningsGatePod. I am at Fake Moods. DJ is at DJ_Mitchell94. DM one of us if you want to get in on the Discord action. And just from me, expect on Wednesday, sometime in the morning or early afternoon, a breakdown of the Tuesday big GPP. Every sort of flagship contest that goes off, I try to write up in the aftermath. So right now I have 1 ticket into the 360s. So that's what I'll be playing and writing about, but also covering the contest and sort of how the field played and my thoughts on that. You can subscribe to that in the description of either the video or the podcast on my Beehive. And then we'll have a podcast for the Thursday slate coming out Wednesday night. And we will, I will do a 3-game slate write-up for Friday because somehow the write-ups I did last week went really well. Thank you to everyone who checked those out. And so Friday 3-gamer, pretty easy for me to plan out in advance, and I'll write that up for you. So be sure to subscribe there as well. DJ, anything you want to plug?
No, just if you're wondering, we talked about underdog at the beginning. NHL Time was kind of asking about that. I was going to go draft as many teams before bed as possible. I'm hoping to get 10 done before I go to bed. So join me in those lobbies. They have been, I think the big slates are really where I can make make it rain. Kind of saved me over on Saturday. Just absolutely, I didn't bank it completely, but pulled back 1,400 on 500 and just felt really, really good after betting card went bad. And I think it's just because, imagine you were playing DraftKings, except the amount of players got shrunk by an eighth on it. I mean, depending how big the slate is, right? It's kind of the magnitude of, because the same amount of players are getting drafted, depending almost no matter what. So, it's a lot of fun. And like we were saying, Connor Bedard with his line mates was, almost definitely unknown besides one lineup. And that lineup should have won 3K. And it's like, why aren't you funding this? The money's there. Do you want it? Go take it. If you don't want it, don't go in there and I'll take it. That's fine. But I think it's a really fun way to play if you have time to kill.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
It is time consuming.
Yes, it is. All right. That'll do it from us. Thank you all for listening. Best of luck on this massive Tuesday slate. And from Doug, From DJ, from myself, have a good spinorama, everybody, and we will see ya.